Whew. Well, we have been busy lately taking a look back at Predaking in 2018. I thought that it was high time for a break, so how about we just sit back, take it easy, talk about some toys and the characters they represent. Maybe do a quick little countdown just to break things up a bit, yeah? You with me? Luck. Everybody would like to have it. Some do, some don't, and today we're going to look at 10 of the most unluckiest, least lucky Transformers characters that there have ever been in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, it is fantastic to have you here. If you're new to the channel, then welcome. I want to start off just by giving a couple of quick shout outs here. Kay Palmer, Nicholas Davidson, John Power, and Tanmaster. Thanks for joining us, for kind of being part of the community. It is extremely appreciated, and I am glad that you are here as well. Check me out everywhere. Check out Machinery of Man and the Everything Factor, and of course, please like, comment, share, and so very important now that you subscribe, show me a bit of love and support. It is beyond appreciated. So we're gonna do a quick little countdown. I've been doing some different things on the channel lately. I'm still working on Universal Collision Season 2. That's up and coming. We kind of have to continue with our Predaking coverage. I'm gonna sort of head into that very soon. I even have kind of a quick stop motion center tutorial coming up, so a lot of interesting stuff. And of course, if you have suggestions to make of things that I haven't done, haven't covered, that you'd like to see, hey, let me know. I always like to interact and talk with you guys. It is fantastic. One of the joys of my life. Or at least one of the joys of my YouTube life. So, 10 of the unluckiest Transformers. Where do we begin? Because you wouldn't think that robots would necessarily be unlucky, would you? Well, we kind of begin at the top. Someone that I doubt many would expect to even be on this list. The leader of the Autobots himself, Optimus Prime. One of the unluckiest that we've ever come across. Why? Because he has had his spark extinguished so many times. He always manages to find a way to come back, which I suppose makes him lucky, but come on, how many times can a guy meet his end only to come back? How many times has he tried to kind of pass the mantle of leadership to someone and it really hasn't worked out? I'm looking at you, Rodimus Prime. I'm also looking at you, RID Bumblebee. Maybe in the Transformers Prime series, Smokescreen should have gotten the nod and the go-ahead to try his hand at leadership. So what about number 9? Number 9 is another unfortunate Prime. This one being the Fallen. Or Megatronus, but we're not supposed to say his name. This guy, depending on the fiction you believe, the story that you believe, either was hard on himself and sort of got manipulated by the Liege Maximo to the point where he extinguished the spark of Solus Prime and sort of banished himself and his name. Or he just always had darkness inside of him and fed that instead of looking to the light. Either way you cut it, the fate of this guy has kind of molded him into who and what he is. And I think we all know that the Fallen is generally recognized as one of the big baddies in the Transformers franchise. Even if this is a very odd looking representation for him. On to number 8. Wheelie. Just because he's Wheelie. No other reason. One of the unluckiest just because he's Wheelie. Because when he was built or born or however these robots come into existence, again depending on what you believe, this guy had the unfortunate fate of just being Wheelie. And nobody really likes Wheelie. I don't think. If you do, you probably shouldn't because it's Wheelie. And his incessant rhyming is one of the most annoying things that I think any fan has ever heard. Number 7 is a poet. That being the Predacon known as Skybite. Of course, this guy might be a surprise on this list. And a lot of fans do enjoy him, even though this toy representation of him is questionable at best. Nevertheless, while I like Skybite, once the Decepticons came on the scene, Megatron's adulation and attention really went toward them and their combined mode. And this guy and those that he led, the Predacons that he led, were sort of forgotten. Always seeking the attention of Megatron, but never quite getting there. And because of that, because he kept being overlooked, I have to put this guy on the list. Moving on. And number 6 is the Decepticon leader Megatron, of course represented here by the Toy World Hegemon. And why would Megatron be on this? Because try as he may and try as he might, he could never quite win, never quite get that brass ring. In fact, even when he was reformatted as Galvatron, given more power, he still couldn't quite get the job done. Yes, he may indeed be a champion in the gladiatorial pits of Kaon, but that didn't stop him in the Fall of Cybertron game from getting pounded to dust by a Titan. And I have to believe that when you are basically beaten by a city, that has to be a very strong measure of just how much bad luck you can incur. As we reach the halfway mark, I point to this guy. It is Unicron. Yes, the Chaos Bringer. Perhaps the biggest antagonist in the Transformers franchise. It doesn't really matter which one you're talking about. But, to be fair, for as much of a nuisance as he can be, he never really wins in the end. I mean, if you look at Transformers Prime, he was the center of Earth, and he still couldn't get the job done on his own planet. In fact, Optimus managed to take him out. We have times where he's been given programs and put to sleep. We've had times where he's run out of power. We've had times where little robots have ended up inside of him and kept fighting each other. Would you want little robots fighting inside of you? I don't think so. And in fact, even the one time that he thought he was in control and had aid from Starscream to attach his head to the planet Cybertron in order to give him a new body, well, at the time Starscream was a ghost and really couldn't do much of anything. So what did Unicron do but gave him a new body? And as soon as Starscream had what he wanted, he told Unicron, quote unquote, do it yourself. He ended up being hurtled through space, and that's the last time we actually saw the G1 Starscream, even though I think most people remember him staying as a ghost, especially since that's how he appeared when visiting Beast Wars. But no, he actually did get his body back thanks to Unicron, and then he kind of turned on him. And Unicron was still left as a head floating in space. I would call that very unlucky. On to number 4. Number 4 is Starscream, as a matter of fact. And why is this guy unlucky? Because he's always been a bridesmaid, but never a bride. What do I mean by that? Quite simply put, he always wanted to lead the Decepticons, but never quite got there. As Megatron said, you couldn't lead ants to a picnic, although I think he used other words. Nevertheless, when the day finally came that Starscream did get leadership, it was twofold. On the one hand, I firmly believe he was inept and had no idea what he was going to do. On the other hand, he was full of pomp and circumstance, even giving himself a coronation. His leadership, however, was very short-lived as Galvatron turned him, quite literally, into dust. You wait your whole life to be a leader, and then you have it for about 5 minutes of fame before the old leader comes back and puts things right. That, for this guy, has to be extremely unlucky. Moving on to number 3. And number 3 is Waspinator. Never quite able to find love, and never quite able to keep his parts together. And in fact, when he is blasted to bits, he usually doesn't even have help being picked up. He kind of has to pick up his own parts and sort of go back to the Energon pool and kind of get himself back in order. Never given respect. And never really given a chance. It's kind of too bad because I always sort of liked Waspinator. Still, it could be argued that at the end of Beast Wars, he finally found peace. Of course, then we had Beast Machines, and in a way he was in it, sort of, and when we kind of found out who he was and how he was involved, and we sort of thought that perhaps he would spark a romance with Black Arachnia, even then he couldn't quite win. Of course, maybe that's a good thing, because I don't know if you should go after a femme fatale that turns into a Black Widow. Seems pretty risky to me. Of course, this guy's all about risk, and that's probably why he is, in fact, so unlucky. On to number 2. And here we are with number 2. Where are you going, Ultra Magnus? No, come back. Excuse him, see? He doesn't have time for this now. Ultra Magnus has to be, again, one of the most unlucky. I mean, he inherited the Matrix, could not use it. He was prone to becoming frustrated with it, and even deemed himself to only be a soldier. He was blasted to bits and put back together by a bunch of Junkions, only to later be done in by Six-Shot, even if we look at later incarnations of him, such as from Transformers Animated. Yes, there he indeed had the Magnus Hammer and he was a leader, but I would venture to say that he was sort of arrogant, and that was always going to lead to a downfall, sooner or later. And then we have Transformers Prime. Yes, again, he is impressive there, and I believe led the Wreckers. But his best weapon was the Forge of Solus Prime that was no longer anything more special than a hammer. He had one of the great artifacts of Cybertronian history, and really it was reduced to being no more than a hammer. Though admittedly he wielded it quite well. Nevertheless, because of the frustrations that Ultra Magnus has faced, he has to take the number 2 spot on to number 1. I bet that this is unexpected for most folks. Number 1 would have to be the Transformers Prime Dreadwing. Why? Well, a couple of reasons. First, his brother, his family, got trapped in the Shadow Zone, and I believe wandered around there as a zombie. Beyond that, he rose to power and prominence and was on the road to perhaps being the successor to Megatron and the leader of the Decepticons. Of course, when it came down to it, he got overconfident and ended up with a fusion-sized cannon hole in his chest. And that was the end of this guy. Done in by his leader, his brother trapped in the Shadow Zone. What could be more unlucky than that? Hopefully, the power of the Prime's Dreadwind, and the one that will combine with him to give us a proper G1 update to Dreadwing, will fare better than the Transformers Prime counterpart. And there you have it, just a fun, quick little countdown, just to kind of break things up. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'd love to know who you would have put on the list other than these guys, or who you would have taken off, and why. Let me know. Get involved. Join the conversation. Of course, I'm going to say again, please hit that subscribe button. It is so vitally important now, and everybody counts. Everybody is a help. As always, I thank you for dropping by, for giving me some of your extremely valuable time. It is so very appreciated, and I look forward to the next time that you and I get together for another visit right here inside the video.